Today, as I mentioned earlier, we are kicking off a new series called Note to Self, what we wish we would have learned in school. And here's kind of the premise of the entire series. We were taught a lot of things growing up. And some of those things, some of the lessons we learned growing up, really good lessons. In fact, as adults, even into our 40s, 50s, 60s, we still believe these things. And these lessons that we learned are still helping us today. But then there's some other things that we learned growing up that are not so good. In fact, some of the things that we're taught as kids are actually just straight up myth. They're not true. And if we're not careful, we can carry those myths with us into adulthood. And it ends up affecting our relationships. It ends up affecting our professional worlds. It ends up affecting our lives in a number of different ways. So over the next 3 weeks, we're gonna look at a few of these myths. And we're gonna go back to school in a way and hopefully come across some really noteworthy things. Today, we're gonna look at one of the most common myths that's taught to kids. My guess is everyone in here heard this at some point when we were a kid. It's probably one of the earliest lessons that you're taught as a kid. And my guess is I could probably give you the first word and you'd be able to fill in the rest of the lesson. You wanna try it out? Here we go. Sticks. See, if you're new here, you're seated around like the finest people in Forsyth County, okay? Here it is. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Now, we're taught this at some point when we're a child, and at some point as we go along through life, it finally dawns on us, you know, this rhymes and it's got a good little cadence to it, but it is entirely untrue, isn't it? I mean, think about it. When were we told this phrase right here? When someone first said this to us, we were like in the fetal position over in the corner because we were hurting so bad from words that were spoken to us. All of us in here, we don't just have one example. We have hundreds of examples throughout our lives where words had a big impact on us. And not only did they hurt us, these words tore us down. And in a lot of cases, these words stuck with us for months and for years ahead. And this is not just a Christian thing. This is not a faith thing. This is just a life thing. This is something that every single human being experiences it. So you don't need a verse to tell you this or to teach you this. Your life experience will teach you that this myth is not true. But if you're a follower of Jesus here today, if you consider yourself to be a Christian, the scriptures are filled with examples and filled with verses that talk about the importance of our words. The scriptures are filled with verses that encourage us to use our words in a way that builds others up, to use our words wisely, to think about the words that we're using. One of the most famous verses in the New Testament comes from Paul's letter to the Ephesians. He's writing this letter. He says this in Ephesians 4:29. He says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only the words that come out of your mouth, only let the words that are helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Paul's saying, pay attention to your words. Don't let unwholesome words come out of your mouth, but only the words that benefit others, that build others up. And this part right here is so important, according to their needs. Paul is implying that all of us have different needs, that your needs are not the same as my needs, and that your needs are not the same as your spouse's needs, or the person you're dating's needs, or your kids' needs, or your coworkers' needs. And so if we're going to speak in a way that is according to their needs, well, then that begs the question, what do the people around us need? And one of the most helpful resources around this idea that I've experienced in the last decade has been KATHLEEN EDELMAN. KATHLEEN is a certified counselor and a coach. She specializes in communication, in helping people speak more kindly and more effectively to one another. And she uses the temperaments to do this. She's actually met with me and my wife many times. We've been in her office, and she's had a tremendous impact on our marriage and the way we parent our children. And that's why Kelly's gonna help me interview KATHLEEN today. KATHLEEN's also an author. Her book released back in January. It's called I Said This, You Heard That, how communication is colored by our temperaments. She's married to Brad. They have 2 kids, Avery and Bryce. And one of my favorite things about Kathleen, I know I'm a little bit biased, but she is a Brownsbridge original, okay? She's been at Brownsbridge since the very beginning. And now that she's traveling and speaking all across the country, it's a little bit of a claim to fame for us here at Brownsbridge. So let's do this. Can we give a warm Brownsbridge welcome to my wife, Kelly, and Kathleen EDELMAN.
Hey.
So good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so
Give you a
glad
hug too.
to be
Almost
back
feel a
at
hug there from my
Brownsbridge.
wife. It's so good to have you here at your home campus.
Yes, I love it. So many people and recognized faces. It's wonderful.
When I got to be honest, when the other campuses bring in Kathleen to speak, whether it's at North Point or Buckhead, you know, you've done a variety of different things. I'm always like, she's ours. Okay? This
is where my heart is.
Home to Brownsbridge. Yeah. So we met Kathleen years ago. Kelly and Kathleen have a great relationship. And again, as I mentioned just a second ago, we've sat in her office and have had sessions where she helps us learn how to communicate. And I don't know, maybe we'll share a little bit of some of what we have learned behind the scenes. But your specialty is temperaments.
Yes.
And for those of us here today that would be new to this content, don't understand it, what's the difference between a temperament and a personality assessment? Because I think all of us in here have heard of personality assessments before, but you're always really, really clear on this is about temperament and it's different than personality.
Yes, and everything I do is through that lens of Ephesians 4:29. So we do communication and temperaments through that lens. But what we have to understand is temperament is where even all the personality assessments are spun off of. Temperaments have been around for thousands of years. And what temperament is temperament is how you innately react or respond naturally to situations. So you are born with it. It's innate. It's like your fingerprint or your eye color. Where personality is more birth order, how you're educated, your culture, okay? So when we're looking at the difference between personality and temperament, personality is the what that happens, the feeling or the behavior. Temperament is the why it happens. So for example, I'm a middle child. How I experience being a middle child comes from my temperament. But being a middle child affects my personality. So they are definitely different. And when we're talking about communication, like Paul talks about, we want to know how we will naturally speak. What's the language we will naturally have? Or what are the thoughts we would naturally have? That's going to come from temperament.
And so there's 4 temperaments.
That's
right. Do
right.
you mind giving us an overview of where they are?
I would love to give you an overview because here's where some confusion happens as well. Hippocrates, documents originating all the way back to him, show that people fell into 4 different categories continuously. Now, the names are the original Greek names that you see here: sanguine, choleric, melancholy, and phlegmatic. And at the time then, they thought it was body fluid or humor of the body, which we don't talk about anymore. And what we also did was we matched them with colors because these words can be a mouthful. So if Cash or Jet,
our boys,
your little ones are trying to say phlegmatic or choleric, it can be a little comical, right? So we just match them with colors. So the sanguine is yellow, the choleric is red, the melancholy is blue, and the phlegmatic is green.
And we'll try to use the colors over the next few minutes, but if we end up saying choleric or sanguine, we'll got to tie that back to the colors. So these temperaments, each of them have a kind of a leaning towards either being task-oriented or people-oriented, also extrovert or introvert. Can you break that down for us?
And the thing is that this may sound very simplistic, but it's really foundationally important because when you understand what these words actually mean, then you're building a foundation and you will immediately start to think of people you know just with this little bit of a description. But first we have to know that each temperament also speaks a different language. I'm going to say that probably several times. But the red and the yellow are extroverts. That does not mean they like to be around a lot of people. What it means is their thoughts and emotions go outward. This is a person that just says something right out, no filter.
We don't know what you mean by that.
You don't know what you mean by that?
I've never done that.
This red and yellow side of the stage doesn't know what I mean by that. What that means is, maybe I shouldn't have said that. or they just needed to know. The reds in here will do this, or they'll do this, or they'll do this, right? So this means thoughts and emotions go outward. Where the blue and the green, we're introverts. This is me. I'm a blue-green. I'm a processor. When somebody says something to me, I have to think about it. So my thoughts and emotions go inward. And then sometimes the blues and the greens have too much filter. But we think before we talk, right? So talk before they think before they talk. Now, what's really important as well is the reds and the blues are task-oriented people. They want objectivity. They want reason. They want a bottom line. They will sometimes even look at people as tasks. Everything they do is task-driven. Right, Kelly?
Yes.
The yellow and the green. This is it.
I have been the task.
You have been a task?
Yes.
Check, I like that, check. The yellow and the green are people-oriented. These are people who want harmonious relationships. They want connection. They want to be involved in a relationship, even if it's a work relationship. So they will pick people over a task. This is so important to know this accurately because of this person. The greens in the room today, I'm on your side. This is an introvert that likes to be around people. This is somebody who can fall through the cracks if you don't really understand this. And then you have people like Kelly that are red, that are extroverts, but they're task-oriented. So they will pick that task over a person every day of the week. So the yellow speaks the language of fun and people. The red, power and control. The blues, perfection and order. And the green is calm and harmony. So those are some of the foundational blocks to start to understand the temperament and how it marries with communication.
And the reason why we're diving into this today as we look at Ephesians 4:29 is this reality that your temperament determines the words you speak.
Yes, and it really does, because it is, if you just step back and you listen to how people talk, if we would stop listening to respond, but we would learn to listen to understand, you could just identify people just by the words that they speak. So for example, the yellows speak fun, animated, exaggerated, people-oriented words. Yeah, so they'll say things like,
this is awesome. This is fun.
Yeah.
Look at all these people. Come on, join in.
Did you notice he didn't even look at the screen? He didn't need to, because it came right on out.
And lots of body movement too. I can't control myself
right?
sometimes.
You missed the one though I totally forgot.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I never
forgot.
I guess I forgot that one.
The reds in the room are gonna speak words that are bold, confident, bossy, controlling, tight, bottom end words.
Yeah.
So Kelly, they might look
Let's get this
like.
done right now. Yeah, I'll do it. Hurry up. Hurry up's a big one for me.
And it's
Come on,
hurry
kids.
up. Come on, hurry
Come on, Adam.
Isn't it funny
More kids than Adam.
when Adam talked, you wiggled, and when Kelly talked, she did this. Are you starting to pick up on some of the temperaments? So they'll say things like this. I happen to be a blue. Blues talk in detailed, analytical, compassionate words. So I'll say things like, I've been giving it some thought. Or I don't really trust him. I don't really trust her. And Avery, my daughter's sitting right here, she'll vouch that I say this almost daily. Are you sure it's safe? We like that word, right, Blues? Are we sure it's safe?
This is a big one for us in putting our kids to bed at night, because our blue asks every night when we're leaving the room. We have twins, identical twins. One's yellow, one's blue, but identical.
Polar opposites.
And they sleep in the same bedroom. Every night when we leave the room, Mommy, Daddy, where are you going to be tonight? Where are you going to be tonight? He wants to know he's safe. And then if we say in the kitchen, how long will you be in the kitchen? What time are you going back to your bedroom? And it's like,
Wants the details, wants to know he's safe. Sometimes I make up stuff. I'll be in the trash can tonight, son, just to see if he's listening.
what do you mean you'll be in the trash can? Is that safe?
And then your other twin probably goes, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Can I go with you, Dad? Can with you?
He has never asked the question. The yellow has never asked the question. And they're the same person. They're identical twin boys, same DNA. And it's
Which is exactly why I love the temperaments, right?
Yes,
I happen to
absolutely.
be married to an identical twin. So, I've seen it. Yeah. The greens often speak language that can be easygoing, sarcastic. They're kind words, but they're going to say things like this. No big deal. Whatever. I'm good with whatever. This is my favorite. Can it wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
Greens, there you go. The greens.
I told
How often
Kathleen,
do you
that's
say that?
why we have, I asked Kelly to be a part. She's a red, I'm a yellow, Kathleen's a blue, and so we're kind of get a good representation of the temperaments. And we asked several greens to be up here, but we're still waiting for an answer.
Yeah, to decide.
Am I really needed up there? I don't know.
Yeah. So this is just a little bit of information, but I hope you think you're starting to identify, like usually the elbows are flying about now going,
That's
see,
you.
this is you,
That's you.
this is you, right?
Yeah.
But I would love you to try to connect a little bit more to see if you can kind of see where you land in your dominant. So we're gonna have you watch this short video and see what you think.
How great is that?
That's great.
Now, I hope that's helped you identify a little bit about what your primary is. Let's just see a show of hands. How many of us are willing to admit that we're red in the room? Even though we're bossy, impatient, I don't love all those words. How many yellows do we have? Our fun,
There's the
playful.
roof,
Woo! They're going to be
yellows.
shouting out a little bit.
That's kind of
Real
quiet
excited.
for
How many
yellows.
blues do we have in the room?
Yes, fellow
Love
blues.
it.
Hi, Sadie.
And how many greens do we have in the room?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
Good. I'm surprised the Reds haven't moved to the front.
Yeah,
to kind
that's
of
right.
They're all over there.
direct me in the right direction here.
And now here's one thing that's really important. If you're just beginning to kind of put yourself into one of these temperaments, no temperament is better than any others. This is something you constantly teach. In your office, people are asking about them. We got to make sure it's clear.
Yeah, I really got to point this out. No, this is so important. No temperament is better than the other. And when you accept your temperament, it allows you to be the best version of yourself, the version that God intended you to be. I truly believe with all my heart that He designed each and every person in here uniquely beautiful, and that in that design is your calling and purpose. And we find that calling and purpose in the strengths of how we're wired, but no temperament is better than the other. And this is usually in my office where I start to get pushback, where people will go, I don't want to be a label, or please don't, they don't say please, don't put me in a box, Reds. They don't like to be told what to do, so they just say, don't put me in a box. But here's the thing, I don't want you in a box. What I want is you to be the beautiful example and live out how God designed you to be. But there's a way to do that, right? And it's with the innate strengths and weaknesses that God designed you to have. We need to know which one we're in.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how we could be aware of and leverage those strengths and then be mindful of the weaknesses.
We know it's light in here because we know dark. We know loud because we know quiet. I think God was very intentional to give us a set of weaknesses so that we would know our strengths. So when I talk to children, we go straight to the strengths because people are like, why are we talking about our weaknesses? Well, as adults, we know we can spend a lot of time in our weaknesses. So what we want to do is we want to know our weaknesses so that we can keep them at bay and we can choose strengths. So each temperament, like I said, we're going to only see a little bit. The book has a huge list, but let's talk about it as you're connecting with the temperaments. This is some of the strengths of the yellow. They're joyful, they're encouraging, they're affectionate, they're popular, they're expressive, they talk in stories, they think in stories. This is a person that's in the moment and sees the best in people first. But in order to know that, our yellows have to know that they can be compulsive talkers. They can elaborate and exaggerate. They hate to be alone. They interrupt. Like if they're hooked on a story, they may even hold on to you so you can't get away. Right? So you want to know that so you know the strengths. The reds, this is a decisive person that delegates well, that's self-directed and confident and driven. This is a visionary. These people can see a goal and bottom line very clearly. How do they know that? Because they can be bossy. They can be quick-tempered. They can be impatient, almost appear arrogant, and dislike tears and emotions. So again, which one are you thinking that if you're struggling with that, we might want to go, we want to pick a strength, because you can. It's a choice. Blue, analytical, perfectionist, creative, artistic, logical, compassionate, sympathetic people. But they also I can be moody. Remember the negatives, withdrawn, skeptical, judgmental. This is insecure socially, I put up there for all the blues in the room, because I know, being a very navy blue myself, that the blues can feel odd. We can feel like we just don't quite fit in. So even as an adult, you can feel like a square peg going into a round hole. And guess what? You're not the only one. So I want to make sure our blues know that. The greens, kind. This is a kind person. Diplomatic, even-tempered, patient. This is who I'm married to. 31 years, he's just like this all the time. And then, oh wait, there was a blip. Avery was born. Woo! Bryce was born. Woo! And then it just kept going. They can be, here's his weaknesses though. Unenthusiastic, indecisive, no sense of urgency. The greens, even though they are quiet, they are the strongest willed and the most stubborn temperament on the board. So don't let them fool you with that quiet demeanor, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, once we start understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each temperament, you led our staff in this exercise last fall that we're going to put up on the screen. Tell us about this.
Well, this is really important. This is an activity that I made mandatory to put in the book, because I have seen people change their lives by just practicing this. Because where you want to be is consistent in character in your strengths. But people are like, how do I do that? Well, you just do this. It's really simple. For me, I have a tendency to be moody, but I'm going to choose to be compassionate. I have a tendency to remember the negatives, but I'm going to choose to be creative. See, it gives you that moment to initiate a pause so that you can look at the circumstance and what's required of you, and then pick the strength that God designed you to do. If we would practice this, you can get comfortable staying in your strengths, right? So for you, Adam, it might be, I have a tendency to interrupt, but I'm going to choose to...
Me interruption right there.
No, yeah.
Well, when you did this with our staff last October, I remember writing down, I have a tendency to elaborate and exaggerate. It was two of the words that you had up on the board for the yellows. And I was like, that's me. I elaborate, I use a lot of words, and I exaggerate. I make things bigger than they are. So for I will choose to, I had to write in there, hey, I'm gonna choose to limit my words, and I'm gonna choose just to tell the story like it is. Yes. Not feel the need to make it bigger or grandiose or something incredible.
And what you hopefully have found is that when you stay in that strength, your stories are as beautiful as God designed them to be, right? So for Kelly, it might be, I have a tendency to be impatient, but I'm gonna choose to delegate well, right? Mm-hmm. And then for the greens, it may be, I have a tendency to be unenthusiastic, but I'm gonna choose to listen. Do you see? So it's just an activity that keeps you constantly in your strengths. And it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Well, and I know you've been able to see this play out amongst your two children, Bryce being
Yes.
blue and Avery being sunshine yellow. So we actually watch this again with our own kids. We have two reds, a blue and a yellow. And so we sometimes will go back and look at videos. We have a video of the kids. One of them's, we told them, don't scream at dinner. And one of them's, what? And the other one's, he's saying, no, do not scream because you're not allowed to. This is against the rules. So just kind of tell us how that's played out for your adult children.
And you know what just dawned on me? You guys have no green in your house.
No.
We have no red in our house at all. So we all overlap in green in the Edelman house. So if it's not planned or it's not fun, it's not happening. So that's the Edelman household. So these are my beautiful children. Bryce is a Georgia Tech guy, blue. Avery's yellow. She's a UGA, so I have house divided. But this is where you can see if you will start to listen to understand instead of listening to respond. You can even see it in the words that the temperament uses. Bryce was studying abroad in Ireland, and he sent us this text. Tour was awesome. Also, talked to somebody from the UK the whole time. It was really interesting. Just got back on the bus to Limerick, safe and sound. Okay, blues in the room. Is that like a totally blue text? Except for what? The all caps, right? All caps with an exclamation. That tour must have been like the best tour ever given, because blues do not do all caps. And we definitely don't do exclamation points unless it's off the chart, right? So this must have been a great tour. And this is to a blue mom's heart. He's back safe and sound. That's how I read it. This is how Avery read it. Yay! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I'm so thrilled to hear that. That's cool that you got to talk to somebody from the UK. I'm glad you're back safe and had fun. Emoji, emoji. Do you see nothing about the all-cap tour? It went directly to the connection of people and how cool it was that he got to talk to somebody. But here's funny too. Bryce never mentioned in here that it was fun. He said it was interesting. That's an Avery word right there. But this is the kicker right here. 1 minute later. Oh no, somebody sat next to me on the bus. The whole trip is ruined. And it's funny, people will walk up to Avery. Of course, some people don't think Bryce exists because nobody's ever actually seen him in person. Avery's always with me, and they've walked up to her and said, is that text real? Is that a real text? And it is a real text, right? You can ask her yourself.
And it's such a great example of when you start to understand these, you literally can see them in every facet of life. So good. Again, going back to Ephesians 4:29, the part of according to their needs.
Yes.
This is what I think is really your wheelhouse. You talk about how the temperaments determine the words that we need to hear.
Yes. And in this next slide that's coming up, if you walk away with anything today, I would like you to walk away with this. This is what separates temperament from personality, is this slide right here. Because we are trying to fill these innate needs always, and you've done it since you were little. But each temperament has their own set of innate needs that speaks to that temperament, and that's what's going to come out in the language that you speak. So for the yellows, it's approval, acceptance, attention, and affection. For the red, it's loyalty, sense of control, appreciation, and credit for work. For the greens, it's harmony, worthiness, lack of stress, and respect. And for the blues, it's safety, sensitivity, support, space, and silence. So if you were even on the fence a minute ago, maybe hearing some of these words you've locked in, and you're like, that's speaking to me. Or now I get my wife or my, son or daughter.
Right. And one of the most helpful exercises you've given us to do as a couple is to go in and define what my definition of loyalty, sense of control, appreciation, credit for work are, because it'd be different from another red.
Yeah, it may be different from another red. And what we have to understand is Adam's looking out of his lens. So he's looking out of a yellow lens. So if Kelly can tell him what these mean to him or to her, then he can love her better. And the defining these words are key to me. And you will have your own definition if you will spend time with God and say, really, you wired me this way. What does this look like for me? Because it's very important for you to know so you can articulate it to the people that you love. Because what we're trying to do, again, you have a love tank, we want to fill it because you cannot give what you don't have. So you have to understand yourself so then you can pour into others, right? But what I did over 30 years was I collected the definitions that I hear the most. And I'm hoping that this will give you a kickstart to make your own definitions. But at least it'll give you an idea of what I have heard over the last 30 years. So for example, the yellow is approval. Being liked for who they are without needing to change. Acceptance, being invited and included. Attention, this is the one I really want to focus on for a minute this morning. Having your full focus, especially eye contact. Okay, if we are not looking through a yellow lens, what the yellows usually hear, and it does not say here, is I want to be center stage. I want everybody looking at me. That's not what this says. This is what I hear the most. Just give me your full attention, especially eye contact.
Yeah, this has probably been most important in our marriage, the attention, because Adam will walk in the house after working and I'm multitasking, getting food on the table, managing the kids.
Task-oriented.
Everything else, yes, getting things done, productivity, right? And so he'll come in with all these great stories from the day, and I have had to learn to just pause whatever I'm doing and give full eye contact. Because if I continue multitasking while he's talking, I mean, he's looking at that as she doesn't care. And I do care, but again, I'm trying to be efficient, but that's not showing him the love that his wiring needs. So that's been really important for us.
It takes intentionality for her, for sure.
She's trying to be efficient. Like you see
still
how
growing,
she's
y'all.
even speaking, red right on there,
Yeah.
even in your description.
Yeah.
But how did that make you feel when she decided to do this?
I mean, it means the world to me because I know her again, she's going to lean towards task-oriented, let's get stuff done. She's on her phone. She's like, I'm listening, go ahead, tell me the story, and she's just knocking it out. But when she can set that down and give me her full attention, means
Love tank.
So, yeah.
I'm still growing
Right?
a lot in that one.
Yeah. The last one's affection, being noticed or acknowledged. For the red, loyalty key, reds, right? Loyalty, being prioritized and knowing you have their back. Reds, loyalty is the top. This is what I hear in my office all the time from reds. Sense of control, being everyone pulling their weight and following the plan. This is the one that's confusing to people. I literally see people going, are you reading this? This you're reading? Are you writing this down? But this is another misconception here, is that reds like power and control, but sense of control is different. Sense of control is all the cogs are working together. Everybody's pulling their weight and following the plan, right? But Kelly, what happens when you come in the house and one of the cogs is off?
I mean, I'd love to follow someone's lead, but if one of the cogs are out, I'm going to step in and...
Right, Reds? If one of the cogs are out, what's the first thing you're going to do? Step in and take charge. Why? Because you're capable and you can handle it. The misconception is that Reds want to be in control or they want to be in charge. That's not necessarily what I've learned over 30 years. They want you doing what you're capable of doing or what you said you're going to do, right?
Very true.
The last one, or the appreciation, is being valued for their unique strengths, and credit for work, being valued for their contributions. So I hope if you're feeling red, these are going to give you a good kickstart. For the blues, safety, right, blues? Safety, we do everything on trust. If we don't trust you, it's not happening. It's that simple. Being able to trust their surroundings, especially their relationships. We will take your secrets to the grave. But if we give you a secret, that means we truly trust you. Sensitivity, being understood. This is not a person that you have to definitely agree with like some of the other temperaments. We just want to know that you heard us and you understood us. If you disagree, that's fine, as long as I know I'm understood. Support, being offered or provided help. And space and silence, having time to decompress, process, or think. And when you customize the definition, this may be where you find a little bit of change, because part of my definition of space is I have a circle around me. So I let Adam into that circle
I've definitely
just a minute
circle.
ago,
Yeah.
even though we had decided on fist pump. You came in for the side hug.
We decided?
And I allowed that.
I forgot.
So that's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh.
He kind of threw me there for a minute with the space thing, but that's okay, because I like you, right? It's the smile. You got me, right? But see, listen, you're over there now, so that's good.
Intentionally.
So here's green.
We'll know that for the next
you
service.
just hug on Kelly, okay? The
Note to
greens,
self.
harmony is everybody getting along and everything going smoothly. Worthiness, being valued for their unique strengths. The green wants to know that what they do or who they are is valued. So if they happen to be away for a meeting or away from the family and you say to that green, wow, you were really missed. It is really different when you're not around. That's gonna go right into their love tank for that. Lack of stress, I love this wording. The absence of conflictive or combative words. You cannot see it on the outside, but green's right on the inside, right? You're just, when there starts to be conflict, they wanna run out the door. Fight or flee, usually flee. Respect, being asked for their thoughts and opinions. Again, this is a person that has great thoughts and opinions. They're just so innately quiet that they don't quite advocate for themselves all the time. But now if you know a green, ask them. And they'll either have a great idea or they'll say, I'm good.
That's really key.
Yeah.
I think what Kathleen's saying, if you're managing a team at work or even in your home, make sure to pipe in and just say, hey, Janet, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. She's lovely. Yeah.
Tell
Very
us,
great.
we're about out of time, but tell us about the idea of gray space.
Yes. Gray space is Adam talks and I hear. I talk and Adam hears. Even if we're on our best, we're not being intentional. We have all this gray area. We leave not quite sure the other one was heard and understood. So now that I know that Adam is yellow, I'm not gonna change who I am, but I am gonna let the words that come out of my mouth fill his innate needs. So we're gonna eliminate that gray area. So when I leave, I hope I've loved him better, or I've loved her better, but I have stayed authentically who I am.
Yeah. When you put this slide up for our staff, I had a coworker come up to me and say, hey, this person was blue. And they were like, I've been speaking blue to you for years. Like, I'm sorry, I realized like the gray space thing, that's what we have. And I had to respond and go, and I've only been speaking yellow. You know, so it was a great example of how, you wonder, okay, what area of life is this gonna play out in? But literally it's every facet of life, and specifically in the work world, it'll affect the bottom line.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
if you can figure this out and begin to shrink the gray space with your boss, with your manager, with your coworkers.
Your children.
Children, marriage, friendships.
Everything.
So a couple bottom lines as we wrap up. Knowing your temperament and that of your blank changes every conversation. Mm-hmm. We were gonna ask you this question as well. How do we know what words are unwholesome? Ephesians 4:29 says, let no unwholesome talk.
And after today, we can answer that question. It is anything that works against the words that each temperament needs is unwholesome or unhelpful. So now we know, and we can literally do what Ephesians 4:29 says, and that's we can pause and let the words out that build the other people up according to
Can you give
their
us a
needs.
quick example of what that is?
Sure, like I'm a blue, so if I was frustrated or I was hurt by something and I came to Kelly and what she did was not paradigm shift or look through a different lens and she's stayed red, she might say something like, just get over it, let's go, you're fine, you can get through this. That's not supportive or sensitivity to a blue. That's dismissive to me. Was she being intentionally unkind? No. She was only speaking out of her temperament, but now she could do that differently. Hey, Kathleen, I see you're frustrated. Is there anything I can do? Would you like a minute? And then I would have went, no, I'm good. Thanks, Kelly. Let's go. Mm-hmm. See, it's just a difference in the choice of the words.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
We want to leave you with a question to think about. And as you just, again, we realize that for some of you, you're just getting introduced to the temperaments. But here's the question. How are you using your words to build up your blank according to their needs? Again, you could put anything in that blank. It could be a friend, a spouse, someone you're dating, a coworker. But how are you using your words to build them up according to their needs? And Kathleen, if someone begins to think about this or begins to see this and just feels like, wow, I've got a long way to go, what would you encourage them?
What I would encourage them to do is realize that once you know this even a little bit, you cannot unhear what you've heard. So it's going to give you the possibility and the encouragement to initiate the pause before you let the words out of your mouth. It's going to give you the ability to show grace to other temperaments and celebrate the differences. Instead of backing off and wanting to change other people, we're going to step in and lean into other people's strengths so that we can celebrate how God designed them to be as well.
That's so good, so good. We have only begun to scratch the surface with Kathleen, but again, the heartbeat here is that we would be able to leverage our words, to love others well, to speak in a way that builds them up according to their needs. Kathleen, thank you so much for being here today. Can we say thank you to Kathleen?
Thanks.
Let me pray for us and we'll be dismissed. Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this church, for the people here, for the backpack drive, for the impact we're having in the community. And God, thank you for Kathleen and her expertise around the temperaments today. God, I pray that wherever we are in understanding our own color and the color of those around us, God, would you just help us to understand more how we can speak kindly to the people around us in a way that truly does build them up, because God, that is what you have called us to do. We ask it in Jesus' name, amen. Now, there's a couple ways to stay connected I want to let you know about before you leave. The first is the app, the I Said This, You Heard This app, completely free, and there are tons of great resources on there. There's videos, there's content that'll be really, really helpful. You can download that to your phone. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Kathleen's book came out in January. We've got some of those for sale out in the hallway if you want to grab those. But they're an incredible study to go through with a group of friends, or if you're in a small group, an amazing way to engage with this content. You guys have an incredible week. We will see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.